Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and this amazing video. I'm Aditya. In this video, we will create a Laravel API that will allow us to import CSV file and insert into the database with validation. So without any further ado, let's begin. I'm also writing an article for this video as well, so it will be more like a text content as well as the video content. So I'll put the description link in the description for the article, and also the CSV we are using is kind of like trying to simulate the data set where we have website activity and we have 1 million records in this CSV I have generated using a Python code. So you can use anything, any data set, not a problem. There we have a user ID which will refer to the user's ID in our users table. So I've also seeded some users by running the default factory of Laravel. So if we go to database factories, user factory, we'll have this user factory over here. So I'm just using this default factory to generate users. And also in the as this setup is done using Laravel Breeze API setup, so I've just modified the login function. So the login function was not returning any response. I've just modified it to return the JSON token, sorry, API token, the Sanctum token. Great. So this is our basic setup, and also as I'm using Postman, so I need to make sure that the login and register route works. So I have added this pre-request script. It just sends a CSRF cookie request, sets the cookie so that it doesn't throw CSRF error for login and request for post requests. Cool. So that's our basic setup. Now let's get started from here. So I'm going to go to api.php. Currently we got the root over here. So what I'm going to do is actually modify this, add a group here, call it function, and then here I will have root, the get route to get the users, and along with that we will have another route. We'll call it to get the batch details, because we'll be using Laravel jobs and there is a feature for batching, so we can batch the jobs and give the results. So we could say more like import status, we can call it something like this, and we'll call it batch ID, and that would be our controller. So we'll write the controller in a moment. And also we will have, so currently we got the page analytics controller for the import, so we can also create a batch import controller. So I'll just type it over here, batch import batch controller class status. Right, let's create the controller. PHP artisan make controller batch controller. Great. And that we can import it over here. I could just say auto import and that will be there. So we can go to this controller, have the function here, public function status, we'll get string, that is batch ID. We can also run the validation on this, like it's required and it's not empty and so on, but I'll skip that step and straight away return the status. So there we go, we have bus find batch. So I'll just use this one. So return bus find batch and the batch ID. Perfect. So this will give us the batch details, and in that batch details we can have pending jobs, total jobs, status, whatever we need. Perfect. Now once this is done, we can now work on our API for batch import. So route post import analytics, that will go to page analytics controller that I have already created. Within that I will have the store function. Great. So let's go over here, public function store, and what I'm going to do is I'll create a service that we will call over here. So within the app folder, I'm going to create a new folder, call it services. Within services, I'm going to create a new service, call it page analytics import service PHP. Quite a good long name. So PHP namespace app services class page analytics import service, and here I will have the function, public function import, and that we will run in a moment. So this will expect a file. So here I can pass a file, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So let's validate. So data $request. We can also have like a Laravel form request to validate this. So request, for now we'll just go with the simple validation without any requests, form request, validate, and here I want file. Now this needs to be there, required. You can pass additional identifier with this, let's say email of the user or anything you like. Along with that, this is a file. The MIMEs are CSV. We only accept CSV file, and the max size of this. So you can have file of 2 MB, 10 MB, 100 MB, anyhow. Now in this case, I want to make sure that the file is, it's actually a huge file. It's like it's 1 million records. Record wise, it's a good size of file, but also in terms of size, it's just 44 MB. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's a huge file in terms of size, but record wise, it's huge. So I will say that maximum I will allow is no more than 60 MB of data. So that's for 61 MB, 61440, or 60 MB actually. So that will make sure that the file size is no more than that. Then we'll get the data, then we'll have we'll send a response like this. We'll first call the service, page analytics import service, import data file. Or what we'll do is we'll see, just pass the entire data, array or data like this. Great. Before we move forward, we also need to make sure that we have the required tables. So currently I got this additional page analytics table, which keeps URL, activity, and the user ID, which refers to the users table. So it's a foreign key here. So we'll also need the table for our jobs and batches. So within my env here, I need to set the queue connection to be database. Oops, database. You can use SQS, anything you like. Currently I'm going to use database. And also if we go to our Laravel documentation for batches or for jobs, if we start initially, it asks us to migrate certain tables. So if we start from here, so this, not this one, oh, queue table. So we'll need one table for queue. So let's run that over here. And also we will need one for batches. So we also need to run this command, and that should have added 2 migrations in our code. So one for jobs, one for job batches. Now let's push this. Our database actually PHP artisan migrate. These two go here. If we refresh our tables in MySQL workbench, and there we go, we got our jobs table and jobs batches. Perfect. Now, as we have 1 million rows in that CSV file, it's very difficult to keep them in a CSV array, because the problem is that we will hit the memory limit, and unnecessarily we have to increase the memory size. Or if we increase the memory size, there is a chance also we might go into an issue of memory leak. So there are various problems, or another problems can arise if we try to fix the one. So to solve this, we could use PHP generators, create chunks of those CSV files one at a time, dispatch those chunks in the job, put that job in the batch, dispatch that batch. So first dispatch the batch, and then add to the jobs to the batch. And then as and when the jobs are added, they get processed. Finally, we get the batch ID, send to the front end. Cool. So let's first create the job. So here I can say PHP artisan make job. I would say analytics import job. So, okay, now what we will do is within this analytics import job, we will make this batchable so that it can be put in the batch. Make sure that this batchable is auto imported. If it's not imported, need to import manually. Then we will have public $chunk data, and we'll keep it as array. Then here we will get array $chunk, and that we will pass it to our this dot chunk data or chunk data, the chunk. Okay, now we'll try to keep it 500 records at one time. Use the validation on each row and then bulk insert it. So to do that, here we will have the validation function. So public function validate each row and discard. So if any row that is not valid, we will discard it from the array. Yeah. So here we will have this chunk data, and this will run it over here. So now here we will have a function. So public function. Here what we will do, we will chunk that CSV file using the generator. Now the good point about generator is that you can store the data in array. Sorry, you can have the data without having to store in the memory or in array. So this will make sure that it is just sent to the job, and then the jobs will take care of whatever we need to do, like validation and everything. So it won't cause any memory problem. So here I will say chunk use with generator, or chunk as generator. Then we will provide the file path here. So I will say string $file path. This is a generator, or returns a generator, or yields a generator. So first we will open the file. So here I'm going to say $handle equal to fopen, and we'll open the file with read access. Okay, I'm going to make sure that this is opened. So here I'm going to say if $handle not equal to false, only then move forward. Great. Now I want to skip the first row because first row is going to be headers, so we'll skip that. So here I could say fget csv, and here we will have $handle 0, the limit, and separator, which is comma. So the first row is header, that will be skipped. Then we will have our chunk data. So chunk data, so we'll chunk, as we have 1 million rows, so I'll chunk 500 at one time. So therefore we will have 2000 jobs. Okay, and here I will have the chunk size. So chunk size, by default it's going to be 0. Okay, then I'm going to use a while loop and keep reading the file recursively. So here I'm going to say $data, or let's call it row equal to fget csv. We'll have the file handle, we'll keep the limit of 0 so it can read the whole row, and then we'll make sure that it's not equal to false, like it can read properly. Okay, just need to make sure about these brackets because this needs to be outside. Great. Then we will first put our chunk data, row within our chunk data array. Then we will increment the chunk size plus. Now what we need to do, we need to make sure if the chunk size has reached array 500 or whatever size you want. I'll keep 500. We will yield this. So that means send this data so that it could be used wherever we want to use. Chunk size equal to 500. Then yield $chunk data, and then reset everything that we got. So $chunk data will be empty, chunk size will be 0 again. Perfect. Outside of this while loop, what we need to make sure is what if the chunk data, like everything is done, and if it's not empty, we also need to yield the remaining data as the last chunk. So we have all these chunks, so 500 chunks. Actually we can make it more like greater than equal to 500, so that by mistake if it goes to 501 for some reason or something like that, and also whatever remains, anything we will chunk that. So we'll say if not empty $chunk data, then we will just yield whatever remains. Just need to make sure that this is within this if loop, because this is for the file itself and this is for the remaining chunk. And here finally we close our file. Perfect. We don't return anything here because this is a generator. Great. Now what we need to do is we need to iterate over all these chunks that are being yielded. So here I'm going to first start the batch. So here I'm going to say bus imported. Gonna have it as an empty batch, or just dispatch this empty batch. Then what I'm going to do is gonna get the file path. So here file path will be $data file get real path. So as this is coming from the front end, so this file would be somewhere stored in a temporary path. Great. Next we will have for each, and here we will just iterate over this generators. So here I'm going to say this chunk as generator $file path, just give me each chunk, and then put that chunk to our job and add that job to the batch. So $batch add new analytics import and the chunk itself. Okay, now here we need to make sure that as this batch is already added, so we don't need to dispatch it again, so we just need to return the batch ID. Okay, let's return this as a string. Perfect. And go to page analytics controller. Here we'll get the batch ID, we'll return the response, or here let's call this batch ID, and let's send this batch ID response JSON batch ID like this. Perfect. So then we can use this batch ID to make the API call for this one over here and try to get the batch status. Okay, for now here let's keep it like this, and then we'll take it from later. Like let's just see if the jobs are getting added in the batch. Okay, so let's go to Postman and test this. So here I have the file. We send the request as a form data. Something is happening. There you go. We get the batch ID. Perfect. All happened within 30 seconds. So great. No problem at all. And now what we need to do is check our database if these batches are added. So there we go. We have our batch, and here we have our jobs. So within the job, you'll see in the payload, it has, if we try to extend one of these, you have a display name, the job itself, and also what it has, so on and so on and so on. Great. So we'll use this now, and let's see if we can run the validation on this and insert into our database. So our database will be page analytics. Perfect. I'll get the job. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say for each $this, or I need to do something like this. Actually, not for each. I need to do $size equal to count of this chunk data. Then for $I equal to 0, $I less than size, I plus plus. All I need to do is run the validation now. So here I'm going to manually validate it, and if there is a validation error, I can put it in the log, also remove it from the array itself, and then process it to send to the server. So first thing here, I'm gonna make sure that I have the validator array. So validate array for validation, or input validation. What I will do actually is I'll just put this into validated inputs, something like this. So this will save, like we don't need to do double thing again, like because here when we insert it, we need to convert it into key value pair and then send it and so on. So I'll just do it here only. It would be much easier. So validated inputs. Now here what I'm going to do is I'm first gonna go to the table and see the keys that I got. So within the table over here, I have URL activity user ID. Dollar input array will be URL. That would be, now this I need to follow the CSV. So just need to see at what row, what column, what things are, right? So the first column is user ID, then timestamp, activity type, and page URL. Now in my table, I have created at and updated at. Actually, ideally, I should have a column of timestamp. I'll just use this created at as my timestamp column. So here I will say URL. So that goes, let's go actually like this. So user underscore ID, that is our 0th column. So that would be that chunk data's row 0th column. Then we got timestamp, so that would be our created at. That would be our second column, because it starts with 0. So activity, and that is, we are calling in the database as activity and URL. So we got activity, that's our next column, and then we have finally the URL, that's our last column. Perfect. I'll run the validator. So here validator equal to validator, that will come from facades, make validation. So let's see what Copilot has to give me. So that's the input array, user ID, it should exist. Or what we could do, no, it's okay. I was thinking to make it more efficient, like getting all the user IDs, all the 500 user IDs, rather than making, because this exists, it's going to make 500 different queries. So get all the user IDs, see if any one of them doesn't exist, take it off from the array, something like that. So you can make it more efficient by doing such thing. So let's actually do that. Let's keep it like this. This is a integer created at, let's not validate created at, because okay, let's keep it as data and see. Let's not validate, actually, let's remove this. Activity is string, so we have these activities. We can also put them in a value, like what activities we have. We have page view, we have login, and like a list of values that we want. And URL is also string for now. Let's keep this one as a simple validation. For the user ID, first we'll make sure that if they have passed this basic validation. So here I could say if $validator fails, then we'll just continue. We won't do anything. Otherwise, we'll pass it into our validated inputs, that input array. Perfect. Now from this validated inputs, what we need to do is get all the user IDs. So here I will get $user IDs array equal to, I can use the array column function, function. In that I'll need to pass the array and what column I want to, or what key I'm referring to, and then it will give me those values and give me the user IDs array. So here first I'm gonna make them distinct. So unique user IDs, I will use array unique, and then I will count actually, or actually no need to count as well. So what we'll do is we'll first get all the users. So users, user IDs from DB. So here I will say user wherein ID unique user IDs, plug the ID and give me the array, and whichever IDs are not there, we'll just remove them. So here I'm going to say validated inputs. We can use the array function, array filter here, and here I'm going to say the array, then the function I can use the arrow syntax, and here I need to make sure only give me those user IDs which are in the array. That's it. And this will give me everything in one query rather than using exists, because exists will make multiple queries or 500 queries. So this will give me in one query. Then we will return the validated inputs. Perfect. Now here I will say validated inputs equal to, in case if you want to throw an error, you can throw an error here. Whatever are not, those user IDs are not here, you can throw the error here. If simple validation fails or this normal validation fails, you can throw the error here as well. So validated inputs will be this validate each row and discard, and then finally we store in the database. So page analytic, that's our model. Is it imported? Yeah, it's imported. We'll say insert validated inputs. Perfect. So let's see if all of this works. So let's first clear the previous job. So here I'm going to say PHP artisan queue clear. So it will clear the previous jobs and also delete the previous batch. So from here, let's delete this batch. Apply. And now let's try to run this. So here we send it. Okay, we got the batch ID. Now also let's use our endpoint over here. So we'll need a get request. So I can duplicate this in the authorization headers. Sorry, in the headers, I want to make sure that it accepts content type of JSON over here. Analytics get, this is import status, and we will pass the batch ID over here. Authorization token is there. Great. So now if we send request to this, okay, let me just double check. Import status for the batch ID, batch controller. Why not? Let's do something like this. Response JSON batch or details will be this one. Right, let's try this out. Okay, details are null. That means it's not able to find the batch we're looking for. Let's just double check if we have the correct batch ID. Oh, I forgot the 9 here. So this is 9B something. Perfect. So total jobs are 2000. Great. Progress, nothing. Okay, let's run the job queue. So here, PHP artisan queue work. Wow, that's going well. Let's just see. Okay, 6 jobs progress. Okay, let's see how many page analytics we have so far. There you go. One after the other, all the analytics are going in. Perfect. So this, we can get the progress, process job, progress 26%, 30%, and so on, and so on, and so on. And if you notice, it's happening so quickly, like it's happening, the import is happening in millisecond, all because we are making less database queries. The validation is handled much on a, like a mix of database and PHP side. And also the most important thing is we are making a bulk insert. We can also improve this further, like if needed. But I think this is good improvement enough. But definitely let me know in the comment section, how can this be improved any further? All right then. So that's all in this video. I think this will continue almost there, 85%, 89. It will go till then. I'll make the outro. So if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you feel this video is worth sharing with your network, please do share with your network. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel. Thanks a lot for watching. But before we go, let's just double check this, because even I'm curious to see how much it has went in. So we go here, we have these many number of rows. Now if we do, this might take a lot of time, and here we have it all 1 million rows. Perfect. So see you in the next video. Till the next time, goodbye.